The background of this video is a game called Slay the Spire. It is a roguelite deck builder, where you start with a very small deck, and as you work your way through the game, you start adding cards to that deck to hopefully face greater challenges and eventually slay the Spire. This is a game that I've been enjoying extensively on my Let's Play channel ever since I got a key from the developers, and I highly recommend taking a further look at it. However, it's not going to have anything to do with the video, it's just going to be used as background for the discussion, and while I will have a few things popping over it to illustrate my points, it's not necessary as I talk about everything that will be popping up. So if you want to minimize this window and just listen, feel free. Originally, this whole controversy with Battlefront 2 and EA is a story that I was going to completely skip on because let's face it, there's been plenty of coverage and plenty of news about the pay-to-win stuff and the poor PR and the likenesses to gambling, well, when it comes to loot boxes. However, an article was released this morning, November 20th, 2017, on CNBC.com. I was pretty surprised when I found this. The headline is, "Gamers are overreacting to EA's Star Wars controversy. Publishers should raise prices," Analyst says. And this is a statement coming from a market analyst. It's summarized by a couple of bullet points here. KeyBank Capital Markets says outrage over video game microtransaction pricing is not justified. And if you take a step back and look at the data, an hour of video game content is still one of the cheapest forms of entertainment, the firm's analyst writes. Quantitative analysis shows that video game publishers are actually charging gamers at a relatively inexpensive rate and should probably raise prices. I'm gonna let that sink in for a moment. Apparently these aren't numbers that he's pulling out of his own butt because he actually cites them later on in the article, and I'll have a link to the article in the description below if you want to go take a look at it yourself. He estimates a typical, and I'm using air quotes here, cost per hour for a Star Wars Battlefront 2 player by saying that if a gamer spent $60 on the game and an additional $20 per month for loot microtransaction boxes and played around 2.5 hours a day for 1 year, it comes out to roughly 40 cents per hour of entertainment. This compares to an estimated 60 cents to 65 cents per hour of pay for television, 80 cents per hour for a movie rental, and more than 3 hours for a movie watched in the theater, according to their analysis. You know, I kind of like these cost per hour calculations, however, this is so audacious. First off, how many of you, I'm willing to bet very, very few, how many of you have 912 hours in a game? Any game, over its whole lifetime, not just 1 year, but 912 hours in a single game. I don't have that. I checked, my longest is Clicker Heroes, and that's for just leaving it idle all the time. I have a problem. And as far as an active game goes, The Binding of Isaac, for both of its versions, if I add them together, is my highest at about 516 hours over 6 years. 388 hours in Rebirth and 128 hours in the original, and that includes all their expansions. 2.5 hours a day does not seem like a lot, but if you're estimating 2.5 hours a day every single day for a whole year, maybe not even a whole year, it could be as little as 1 or 2 months. If you're estimating that much, that is an enormous amount of time that most players are not going to be able to sink into the game. And that's even glossing over the fact that they're making a huge presumption that the game is going to be fun, rewarding, or engaging enough to warrant that kind of playtime. This is such an audacious claim. I don't understand where they're coming from here. To the analyst's credit, though, he is being very kind in these calculations. I worked this out myself. He says $60 for the game, $20 per month for a full year. And we're gonna go ahead and stick with the full year because that's easier to calculate. The numbers are a little easier. So that comes out to $300 for the whole year spent on Star Wars Battlefront 2. And if you end up playing 2.5 hours every single day for the year, 2.5 hours every single day for the year, or something roughly equivalent, you'll be playing 912 hours over that year. And by my calculations, that comes out to about 33 cents an hour, which is even lower than he cites in this article, which, again, is still lower than other forms of entertainment. And historically, video games have been pretty low on a cost per hour basis, especially if you play The Binding of Isaac the way I do. I haven't even calculated that. It's probably absurdly low. I've gotten so much value out of that game. I went a little further, calculated if you didn't buy any loot boxes and played that much, it costs about 7 cents per hour, which is absurd value. But again, that's assuming a lot. That's assuming that the person is going to be enjoying their time enough to play that much Star Wars Battlefront 2, which I find unbelievable. I don't care how good the game is, and that even assumes that you're not even playing any other games. This is an incredibly audacious statement. I think very few games have the capacity to reach this level of hours played. And for those games that do, it's still a very small subset of people that will reach that number. The reality is, most people are going to buy the game, probably play it for less than 60 hours, and that's putting it at a $1 per hour cost basis. That's without buying any of the loot boxes, which, from everything I've seen, from the stories I've been following, and the coverage I have watched and read, you're gonna need to buy loot boxes if you want any sort of progression in the game. Of course, there's the whole argument that they've pulled loot boxes for the beginning of the game's life cycle, and but they're going to add them back later on. They've said that they're going to add them back later on. So who knows what they're even going to do to the progression once that happens. Sure, there will be a lot of people that stick around to get their value out of the game that they bought, and sure, there will be people buying microtransactions, but these numbers are just completely unbelievable. And what bothers me specifically about this article enough for me to be triggered and make a video about it is because this is actually not on any gaming news website. This is on CNBC.com. This is about as mainstream as it gets, man. Now, I'm no market analyst myself, so there is a probability that this journalist and these analysts are able to see something that I'm not able to see, but based on my experience gaming, and my experience watching my friends game, and just being part of the gaming sphere in general, these numbers are just completely garbage. 912 hours. I just I can't believe that. And it's more than likely that even that 912 hours on top of the $240 you sunk into those loot boxes still is not going to be enough for you to have gotten exactly what you wanted from them. Again, based on everything I've seen with the whole controversy. And the fact that he's using these numbers to say that publishers should raise prices? That's no, I'm done. How can you come to that? How can you come to that conclusion? How is that even possible? The analyst in question is quoted saying, "Gamers aren't overcharged, they're undercharged, and we're gamers." No, you're not. Not with numbers like this. If you were a gamer, you would understand just how much 912 hours over a whole year is. You would understand that most people do not sink that kind of time into the game. Shares of Electronic Arts have declined 9% month to date through Friday. Wall Street is worried. Controversy over EA's Star Wars Battlefront 2 in-game monetization model will hurt the video game's sales. Wingren noted there is now a slightly higher probability the title will not hit his 13 million sales unit forecast. I certainly hope it doesn't. Something about these two statements really makes it feel like Electronic Arts really isn't going to be hurting from this as much as gamers would like for them to. And I'm not saying that from a perspective of schadenfreude. Excuse me if I mispronounce that word. What I mean, though, is for them to change their practices, for them to not pull this kind of stunt in the future, they need to see significant damage to their bottom line. And based on these two sentences, and based on everything I've seen, and based on everything I've read, I don't see that there will be any significant damage done to make them actually change their tune. Which is unfortunate. I have a feeling this whole controversy is going to be swept under the rug just like many of the other controversies of the past, and slowly but surely, we will make our way back to this model that EA has introduced into Battlefront 2, and it will come to be accepted as the new norm, without us ever even realizing it. That's my worry. And articles like this CNBC article definitely do not help. Like I said, there's going to be a link to it in the description below, so go take a look at it and see how ridiculous it is. Although only slightly related to the rest of the video, I wanted to use this video as an opportunity to talk about my stance on loot boxes and how it's kind of changed over the past year and a half. Because I've gone on record on some fairly popular videos saying that I don't think the loot boxes are a big deal. And while I am starting to change my stance on this, I'm still just kind of teetering on the fence, and I'm having a hard time deciding one way or the other for any real definitive stance. And I know that really sounds wishy-washy or beating around the bush, or that I don't want to put myself on the wrong side of a fight, but really, it's so much more nuanced than just, they're really bad, or I love them. But I will say this. My acceptance of loot boxes in general is declining. You can probably thank Jim Sterling for a lot of that, because as you might know, I'm a fan of his, and I enjoy watching his Jimquisitions, and he's had a lot to say about loot boxes over the past year. Especially when I go into the comments of his The Year of the Loot Box video, where there's a gentleman who says, "Thank you, Jim. I have a drug and gambling addiction. Have for years. I used to love games. In fact, when I was getting clean, I used to escape into the fake realities of games like Red Dead, Borderlands, and Diablo to forget the pain for a while. Now these same gaming companies want me to suffer and give in to my desires and play the loot box game. For my own safety, I had to stop playing so many games I loved. Thank you for not giving in to the fanboys and girls and keeping up the pressure." Now, I try to empathize with people, because I don't have a drug and gambling addiction. But there are people out there who do. And there's people out there who can only afford to spend the $60 that they have on one game and are unable to buy microtransactions. There's so many people in so many different circumstances who are going to be harmed by these loot boxes in one way or another. Even if it's cosmetic only, it can have an effect. There's plenty of people who love the cosmetics. There's plenty of people who won't play because their skins for all their favorite characters are all ugly. There's people like this guy who are actively being harmed because of their own addictions. And now, even though that might be a game that he loves to play, or he would love to play, he has to distance himself from it. Otherwise, he's going to have more problems. And it's seeing stuff like this that has made my acceptance of loot boxes drop. However, like I said, I'm still kind of teetering because, like, when it comes to Overwatch, and the fact that those are purely cosmetic, that is still dangerous because you can't get what you want. You buy the things and hope to get what you want. However, that's the kind of thing that I've started to dislike. And I think even for cosmetic microtransactions, my compromise would be just allow people to buy what they want directly. Not just from getting duplicates and getting coins, but allow them to buy what they want directly so that the loot boxes is actually optional if you want to get the stuff. And maybe don't even give the ability to buy loot boxes with real money. You can still earn loot boxes throughout the game, and that's your reward for actually playing the game. And then if you want to spend money on a specific skin, then you can do that. That at least takes away a lot of the temptation, and takes away a lot of the actual gambling parallels. Because you're not actually sinking anything but time into it, and you're getting rewarded for playing the game, although in a very random way. I don't know, like I said, I'm teetering on the fence here, and I know these last couple statements were probably, cringe to listen to? But like I said, I think it's a little more nuanced than just, they're all completely bad, or there's no problem. There's a lot of gray area here, but I am leaning towards the side of, it's bad, and who knows, maybe I'll fall all the way down there eventually. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any thoughts about anything I said in this video, please leave it in the comment section below. What do you think about this analyst saying that people are going to play 912 hours of Star Wars Battlefront 2? I think it's ridiculous. How about you? And as always, if you like this content, hit that like button. If you disliked it, hit that thumbs down button. And if you want to see more gaming content like this in the future, be sure to follow me on Twitter @ingeniousclown and hit that subscribe button. And I will see you next time.